Have you ever sat in a quiet room, wondering how you went from being the center of your child's world to feeling like a stranger in theirs? You raised them, you loved them, you sacrificed more than anyone ever saw. And now it's as if you've been edited out of the story. Maybe they stopped calling, maybe you only hear from them when they need something, or worse, maybe they've gone completely silent and you've been told to give them space. It hurts. And if you've tried going no contact to protect yourself, to show you won't tolerate being treated like an afterthought, you're not alone. A lot of parents over 60 think that if they just disappear from their children's lives, maybe that silence will echo loud enough for their child to miss them, to feel the loss, and to come running back. But here's the hard truth. Disappearing isn't power. No contact might feel like strength, like you're drawing a line in the sand, but more often than not, it's just silence soaked in sadness. It's a response that leaves you stuck, waiting, wondering, and wasting the most precious thing you have left: time. Power isn't in removing yourself, it's in rebuilding yourself. It's in becoming the kind of person no child, no matter how far they've drifted, can forget, ignore, or replace. Not by force, not by guilt, but by becoming someone so deeply centered, so quietly confident, and so unmistakably valuable, they start to feel the distance themselves. So today, let's talk about how to do just that. Not for revenge, not for drama, but for your own freedom, peace, and dignity. Let's talk about becoming unshakable. And it begins right here with learning how to master your emotions. Because the minute your child knows they can shake you, guilt you, or get under your skin, you lose. Not in a competitive way, but in a spiritual one. You lose control of your own story. You become reactive instead of intentional. You stop living your life and start waiting on theirs. Now, let me be clear. Mastering your emotions doesn't mean pretending you don't hurt. It doesn't mean stuffing down the sadness or ignoring the sting of rejection. It means recognizing it and choosing not to let it steer your actions. You can miss your child and still not chase them. You can love them and still let them go, if only for your own healing. The power here is in responding, not reacting. So when that wave of emotion comes, the urge to call, the temptation to text, just thinking of you, the ache of wondering and where you went wrong, pause, breathe, and remind yourself, my value does not depend on their attention. You are not broken just because they are distant. Their silence is not your definition. In fact, the most powerful thing you can do is not flinch, not in anger, but in quiet, calm. Let them feel the silence you fill with strength, not sorrow. Now, that leads us to something that might surprise you: the psychology of connection, or more specifically, reverse connection. You see, the more you chase someone who's pulling away, the faster they run. That's human nature. We all crave what feels just out of reach, not because we're manipulative, but because we value what isn't easily available. If your child thinks they've got you wrapped around their finger, that you'll always be there no matter how they treat you, they won't change. Why should they? There's no cost, no shift in power. But when you stop showing up on cue, when you stop proving your love every 5 minutes, hoping they'll reciprocate, something happens. They start to notice the gap. Now, this isn't about playing games. This is about understanding that value isn't in what's loud, it's in what's missed. And people don't start appreciating presence until they feel absence with dignity. That's where you quietly pull back, not with spite, but with peace. You stop updating them on your day. You stop reminding them to call. You stop sending photos or forwarding news articles or checking if they got your last message. You stop reaching out, not in anger, but in acceptance. And here's the kicker. You don't need them to notice right away, because during that space, something beautiful can happen. You begin to rediscover you. That brings us to one of the most important parts of this journey: reinventing your self-worth. And I mean that from the inside out. After 60, it's easy to feel like your best years are behind you, like you're only valuable in the roles you used to play: mum, dad, provider, protector. But now, without those roles constantly being acknowledged, you may feel like a faded version of yourself. Let me tell you, that's not the truth. It's just an old story you don't have to keep reading. You still have chapters left, and what you do next can either be a reaction to the pain of being overlooked or a declaration that you are still evolving. So pick something. Pick anything that brings you back to yourself. Maybe it's your health. Start walking again. Join a Tai Chi group. Grow your own vegetables. Maybe it's your mind. Take a free online class. Join a book club. Learn how to paint. Maybe it's your spirit. Volunteer at a shelter. Mentor someone younger. Join a local choir. It doesn't matter where you start. What matters is that you start showing up for yourself, because when you begin to glow from within, when you're no longer glued to the phone wondering why they haven't called, your energy shifts, and energy doesn't lie. You begin to radiate a quiet strength. And guess what? That strength is deeply attractive, even to your children, whether they admit it or not. It's not the needy parent who is missed. It's the parent who grows, who gets sharper, who surprises them with how well they're doing and how little they seem to be waiting around. This is how you become magnetic again, not by pulling, but by rising. And here's what happens next. That invisible wall, that distance that seemed so permanent, it starts to feel less stable. Your child may start to wonder, did I misjudge them? Did I walk away too soon? Have they moved on without me? And that's not your goal, but it may be the beginning of their awakening. You're not doing this to make them chase you. You're doing this to stop chasing what doesn't serve you anymore. You're doing this to build a life that feeds you, fills you, and frees you from the emotional cage of waiting. Because your story isn't over. You're not just a parent. You're a whole person. And if your children can't see that now, you show them later. Not with words, but with the life you choose to live. There's a moment in life, especially as we get older, when we stop looking for applause and start searching for peace. And that peace doesn't come from being accepted by others. It comes from being aligned with yourself. When your child starts to feel your absence, not because you slammed the door, but because you quietly closed it to tend to your own garden, that's when something shifts. But here's the important part. They can't see your value if you don't see it first. You've already laid the groundwork by mastering your emotions and no longer chasing connection. You've stepped back, not in bitterness, but in strength, and you've started to rebuild your life one small, deliberate decision at a time. That's powerful. But now, it's time to take it further. It's time to become visible again, not in their life, but in the world. Not to them, but to yourself and to others. Because whether you realize it or not, people are watching. They see when you carry yourself with dignity. They notice when your smile returns, when your shoulders square, when your energy changes. You might be surprised, but this is when something called social proof comes into play, and it's more natural than it sounds. Imagine you're out having coffee with new friends. Maybe you've joined a walking group, or you've started attending local events again. You post a photo of yourself at the museum or volunteering at the community center. No captions about missing anyone, no sad quotes, just life, full, calm, yours. Now, imagine your child sees it. Maybe someone sends it to them. Maybe they stumble across it. What do you think they feel? They expected you to be stuck. They assumed you'd wait forever, quietly, desperately holding space for them to return on their terms. But now they see a version of you they didn't expect. One that's doing just fine, maybe even better than before, and that can shake them. Not because you're trying to make them jealous, but because people don't regret walking away from someone who disappears. They regret walking away from someone who grew beyond their reach. This isn't about showing off. It's about living on. When your life becomes rich and whole again, it sends a clear message without saying a word. I am still here, and I am still growing. But don't mistake visibility for vulnerability. This next part is crucial. You don't give your child the full window into your emotional world. You don't break the silence with a message about how good you're doing now. You don't say, "Look at me now." Instead, you adopt something much more powerful: strategic coldness. Now, that doesn't mean being rude. It doesn't mean giving the cold shoulder. It means adopting a kind of emotional discipline that protects your inner peace. So if your child suddenly sends you a text, maybe a "hey" or a picture from the past, you don't jump. You don't fall into the trap of thinking, "They miss me, they're ready to reconnect." No, you stay calm, you stay grounded. You respond only if you truly want to, and when you do, you keep it short, polite, and neutral. Not to punish them, but to protect yourself. Because you've done the work, you've climbed your way out of the hole their absence left behind, and you're not about to fall back in just because they toss you a rope of curiosity. They need to feel the difference. They need to sense that the version of you they once took for granted is gone, and what's left is someone far more centered. The goal isn't to make them uncomfortable. The goal is to remain untouched by their sudden interest, to make it clear, gently and confidently, that your life is no longer orbiting around theirs. That's when something even deeper begins to happen. They start to wonder what changed, why you're not so easily available, why you're not waiting in the shadows anymore. And that's when you flip the script, not with words, but with behavior. Because when people feel someone pulling back, they either walk away completely or they start moving closer. Now, here's where it gets interesting. Let them come to you. You've stopped reaching. You've stopped trying. And now you allow space for them to come forward, if and when they're truly ready. But you're not building your life around that possibility. You're not secretly hoping every message means reconciliation. You've let go of the outcome. If they reach out, wonderful. If they don't, you're still at peace. Letting them come to you isn't passive, it's confident patience. It says, "I know my worth. I don't need to prove it. And if you're ready to meet me with respect and sincerity, I'll be here. But only as someone who stands tall, not someone who begs to be seen." And if they do start to return, don't rush it. Don't throw open every door the moment they knock. Let the relationship rebuild slowly. Let it earn its way back into your life. Because the truth is, if they come back and find you unchanged, it only confirms their decision to leave. But if they come back and find you stronger, calmer, wiser, they won't just see a parent. They'll see a person they deeply underestimated. This is the power of restraint, the power of no longer chasing. You might be thinking, but what if they never reach out? What if I never hear from them again? That's the question that haunts most parents in your shoes. And the honest answer is, you might not. You can't control that part, and that's exactly why you stop trying to. You take your focus off of what you can't fix, and you place it on what you can become. Because at this stage in life, your peace matters more than closure. Your happiness matters more than explanation. You don't need a perfect ending with your child to have a beautiful, fulfilling life of your own. You are not here to beg for connection. You are here to embody value. And those who are meant to stay or return will recognize that. But until they do, or even if they never do, you live well anyway. You walk forward with grace, with purpose, and with the quiet knowledge that your love was real, your efforts were enough, and your value was never based on who stayed. There's something sacred about reaching the point in life where you don't need to prove anything anymore. You've already done the work. You've raised a family, held jobs, paid bills, weathered storms, and kept going even when your heart was tired. So if your child decides to pull away, that's not your cue to shrink. That's your moment to rise, and rising sometimes looks like walking away and meaning it. Not out of bitterness, not as a power play, but as a deep act of self-respect. When you reach that point, when you stop checking your phone, stop replaying old conversations, stop bending your identity around the hope that one day your child might come to their senses, that's when the real healing begins. It's not a performance. You're not pretending to be strong. You simply understand something now that you didn't before. Your worth was never supposed to be defined by someone else's validation, not even your child's. You can love them always. You can even hold space in your heart for reconciliation, but you no longer build your days around the chance they might show up, and that is freedom. True walking away is not about disappearing. It's about redirecting your attention back to the life you've been neglecting while waiting on someone else to return. It's about showing up for yourself the way you once showed up for everyone else. It's about tending to your own garden, not waiting at the gate. And here's where something remarkable happens. The redemption doesn't come through confrontation or big speeches. It comes in silence, in peace, in presence. Silent redemption is what happens when you live so well, so full, so joyfully, not despite the pain but through it, that the loss becomes a scar, not a wound. You don't need to call them to prove you're okay. You don't need to post quotes online hoping they'll see. You simply live, fully, authentically with intention. And when people see you, whether that's your neighbors, your friends, or yes, maybe even your children, they sense it. They sense a shift, a lightness, a grace. You stopped waiting and you started becoming. That's how you reclaim your story. Not by erasing the past, but by refusing to let it control your future. The beauty of this quiet redemption is that it's not about anyone else anymore. It's not about who left. It's about who you are becoming in their absence. And what you're becoming is irreplaceable. Because the truth is, your kids can find other people to text, other people to laugh with, other people to get advice from. But they can't replace your presence, your essence, the soul of who you are, unless you let them forget. And that's where this all leads, not to revenge, not to regret, but to rebirth. To becoming so rooted in your own purpose, your own voice, your own healing, that no one can define your worth ever again. You don't become irreplaceable by demanding loyalty. You become irreplaceable by becoming someone so steady, so rich in character, that your absence teaches more than your presence ever begged to. So what does that look like in real life? It looks like a man in his 60s who stops apologizing for boundaries and starts hiking again, alone or with others, and discovers he feels more alive now than he has in years. It looks like a woman who stops sending holiday invites that go unanswered and instead books a ticket to a city she's always wanted to visit and ends up dancing with strangers under golden lights. It looks like joining a choir, learning Tai Chi, mentoring a younger person, reconnecting with siblings, hosting Sunday dinners with friends instead of waiting for kids who won't come. It looks like joy returning, not because your child came back, but because you did. Because the you that existed before the heartbreak, the one full of ideas, energy, kindness and laughter, that person didn't disappear. They just got buried under years of giving, sacrificing and being needed. Now, it's time for that person to rise again. And if your child ever does return, they won't be coming back to the same person they left. They'll return to someone wiser, stronger, softer in the right ways and harder in the necessary ones. Someone who doesn't beg for love, but inspires it by simply being whole, and maybe, just maybe, they'll see that they didn't walk away from someone weak. They walked away from someone valuable, someone they can't just replace. And you'll be okay either way, because the greatest peace comes when you no longer need anyone to come back in order for you to move forward. So here's what I want you to remember. You're not broken because they're distant. You're not powerless because they're silent. And you're certainly not invisible just because someone chose not to see you. You are still here, still valuable, still becoming. Let them watch from a distance if they must. Let them realize what they lost in their own time, or not at all. Because this next chapter, it belongs to you. You don't need to prove anything anymore. You don't need to beg. You don't need to disappear to be missed. You just need to become so full of life, growth, and grounded peace that even if they never return, you never feel the emptiness they left behind. And that's what makes you unforgettable. If this message spoke to you, if it helped you feel just a little stronger, a little lighter, I'd love to hear your story in the comments. You're not alone in this. And if you're on a journey of healing, growth, and becoming your best self after 60, go ahead and subscribe to my channel for more encouragement just like this. Together, we can live boldly, with dignity, and with the deep knowing that we are not replaceable. Cheers to becoming the person no one forgets, and most importantly, the person you were always meant to be. Cheers to living your best life at any age.